They said this would be my last job. I'd heard that one before. Who am I? That's me, Private Investigator Beaufort H. Nerr. But you can call me Bo Nerr. The name my father gave me rang in my head much like a bell, ringing. This office has become all too familiar to me. 6 pencils, 2 pens, the framed picture of some crippled stallion on the left corner of the desk. The bitter stench of lukewarm coffee stained my nose. And of course, there was Dixie. In a city full of terriers, huskies, and stray dogs, Miss Normus was the cat's pajamas at Boston University's Student Activities Office. She had a certain look in her eyes sliding that folder across the desk. I thought this job would be simple. I couldn't have been more wrong. My objectives centered around an acapella group, the Dear Abbeys. I couldn't help but laugh. Dixie didn't share the sentiment. She insisted the Abbeys were much more than a singing group and instructed me to infiltrate their ranks, reporting back evidence to take them down. What's in it for me, I asked. That's all I needed to see, Toots. I never really was a choir boy, but anyone can sing. That's what the hit movie with a sequel on its way, Sing, starring Taron Egerton and Matthew McConaughey, taught me. But Christ, I couldn't hold a pitch. Thankfully, I don't think they noticed. My confidence and swagger seemed to do the trick. Like roller skates in the 80s, I was in. I hadn't been to a rehearsal since my first wedding's rehearsal dinner back in '04. We served a rack of lamb. Sheep. The world's full of them. It wasn't easy to blend in. These were BU's finest, after all. I have to admit, I've taken down countless crime syndicates, but these guys were some of the toughest specimens I'd ever seen. I knew I had to completely transform myself to gain their trust. That meant sacrificing every ounce of my integrity, adding aka in front of everything. Aka awesome, aka amazing, aka cheesesteak. Maybe I was paranoid, but I had to be. I began to think they were suspicious of me. One of them, they called him Tony, wouldn't take his eyes off me. I couldn't tell if his piercing gaze was one of malice or of lust. I forced a smile. I couldn't blow my cover. I needed to look like I wanted to be there, so I quietly observed their every move, watched every mouth movement, every lip quiver said to achieve tonal quality. It's funny. As ridiculous as it all was, it seemed these crooks actually enjoyed singing. I found myself wondering, maybe this case is a dead end. Maybe they were just an a cappella group. But I had a job to do. And in order to take down the Abbeys, I had to become an Abbey. And it wasn't half bad. I'd become so dedicated to this case that I began to lose sight of what it was all for. I found myself getting little moths fluttering around in my stomach, all nervous to perform at the winter show. And when we were on that stage and the crowd was screaming my name, Bo Nerr, Bo Nerr, Bo Nerr, I felt a rush like nothing I'd ever felt before. What had I become? A singer? No. An Abbey. I was too good at my job. But what was this job anyways? I'd been with these guys for weeks on end and I'd found no evidence. Was I wasting my time? But just as I thought about abandoning this fruitless investigation, Tony pulled me aside. He just looked at me. He didn't utter a word. I tried to break the silence, but he wouldn't hear it. It was a bone-chilling 6 minutes of stillness. I thought to myself, he knows. He must know who I am. I'm finished. Done for. Kaput. And finally he said, "You're ready." The job was simple. A handoff. I was Tony's backup. Man of few words, he didn't tell me much, just to follow him and carry the bag. I obliged. I was actually getting somewhere. Somewhere nefarious. A lone stocky man, somewhere between 5'9" and 5'9 1/4, greeted us with a Slavic grunt in some inconspicuous alleyway. He smelled like meat, but not like some fine prosciutto or butcher's veal. This was more like wet ham. He nodded to Tony. Tony nodded back. He nodded to me. I nodded back. After enough polite nods were exchanged, the deal proceeded. He knew what we were there for. I hadn't a clue. Maybe it was ham. It wasn't. By the look of the package, I couldn't imagine the amount of tickets they had to sell to get their hands on it. Now I'll be candid. I was startled to see Tony brandish a 3-inch blade. If shit was about to go south, I needed to head west. For once, I wasn't on the receiving end of one of Tony's death glares, but it still made me quiver. He looked like he was about to snap, and he did, my cue. With a sigh of relief, I handed him the bag. Everything was up to snuff. With our dues paid in one final nod, I followed Tony back into the shadows. All the pieces were coming together. All I needed was photographic proof. Then my work was finished. Things were getting frisky at the Abbey house. It was, of course, customary to celebrate after a successful gig. This meant arm wrestling, regular wrestling, overly intense games of poker, milk, you know, man stuff. Tony and I arrived late to the evening's proceedings, but still received a warm welcome. We didn't return empty-handed after all. I kept a watchful eye on my partner in crime as he presented the package to the head of the whole operation, the Commander-in-Chief, Mr. President. The rest of the choir boys hovered around the brick like buzzards around a retirement home. This was my chance. One photo, and I was home free. One photo, and the Abbeys would be no more. Pokemon cards? They've been dealing Pokemon cards? Are you kidding me? All this for Pokemon cards. I couldn't bear to watch them drool over these trivial pocket monsters any longer. I left. I cursed to the wind. I cursed SIO and Dixie. I'd spend months undercover, and for what? For the first time in my life, I questioned my purpose. I didn't know who I was anymore. Just like all of my marriages, I'd gotten to the home stretch just to fail all the same. Maybe I just wasn't meant for this kind of work. Maybe this city didn't need my services anymore. Maybe there were no more crooks to catch, no more bad guys to bust. Shit. I smoked my first cigarette in 4 years. Why? I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. I'd been a detective longer than I can remember. A lone wolf. But still, I never felt lonelier than I did that night. But maybe I didn't have to be. Those moments as an Abbey, they were real. As dim-witted as they seemed, they accepted me. I was so wrapped up in the job that I neglected to see I'd become a part of something bigger than myself. That I'd become a part of a brotherhood. I was an Abbey.